Okay. So in last lecture, we discussed a little bit about IO, and then we started discussion of disk scheduling policies. And to discuss these policies, we use this example where we have this uh, request. These are the particular request for the tracks, track 82, 130. These are the pending requests for the different tracks, disk tracks, and we use that as an example to discuss first in first out. We discuss, then we discuss priority, then list in last in first out, that is LIFO. Excuse me. Then we discuss SSTF. Finally we discuss scan and look. I think we also discuss cscan, which is very similar to scan. The only thing is when you use scan, you go in one direction, but you need not to go to the uh, sorry, when you it is very similar to scan. You go in one direction, go to that end of that direction, and then when you reverse, you are not completing all the request pending in that path. First, from here you will first go to the starting of the track, and then again in the same direction you will scan it. So while reversing, you are not uh, servicing any request. From here you directly go to the start of the disk, and then from there again you start scanning, and whichever requests are pending in that direction you serve that. That is cscan, and it provides more uniform wait time compared to scan. That is the advantage. Look, again it is very similar to look. The only thing is you always serve request in one direction. Once you finish the last highest request, then you reach to the first lowest request, and then go again in this direction and serve all the requests pending while traversing in this way. And you can see the total seek time in look and scan, and when you compare it with look and scan, you may get different values. Of course, scan and look give you higher seek time, but this is one way, because here you get have higher seek time but response time is better. Now these are the few strategies that we discuss. There are few more. So with SSTF, scan and scan, again we are not considering here look and look because they are very similar to scan and scan. So with SSTF, scan and scan, it is possible that the arm may not move for a considerable period of time. Now you need to understand this. SSTF, that is shortest service time for scan, scan, it is possible that the arm may not move for a considerable period of time. For example, if one or few processes have high access rates to one particular track, they can monopolize the entire device by repeated requests to that track. For example, let us take example of scan. Suppose you reach here 82, and now before you go in forward direction and serve this 142, it is possible that new requests are coming. New requests are continuously coming for only this sector 82. So it is possible that your arm discount, it is not going to move in any direction and it will be stuck here because continuously requests are coming for this particular track. And same thing is possible with scan, SSTF, look, scan, look, everything. So in that case, it is going to monopolize the entire device by repeated requests to that track. To avoid this arm stickiness, this is called arm stickiness because now your arm is not moving. The disk request queue can be segmented. Now what you can do, the disk request queue that you have, now you create segments out of that. You just divide it in different segments with one segment at a time being processed completely. So what you do, and there are two examples of this approach, N-step scan and F-scan. So what you will do now, first you will segment the disk request queue into sub queues of length n. Now you will create sub queues from the request queues, and each sub queue is of length n. and each subqueues are processed one at a time using scan algorithm. Now, new requests which are coming, they will be added to other queue when queue is being processed. Okay, now the new request which is coming, it will not be added in the queue which is right now being processed. Rather than it will be added in new queue. So the newly coming request will not monopolize this arm. And with large value of n, the performance of n step scan approach is that of scan. Of course, if your queue size is very big, number of queues will be less, and it will approach the performance of similar to scan. And with a value of n equal to 1, the FIFO policy is going to be effective. So now, whether you want n equal to, if you use n equal to 1, that is size of the queue, sub queue is 1, then every request is there in one queue, and that is simply FIFO, first in, first out. But if you create sub queues of length n, which is very high, that is also problematic, because then it will be similar to scan. So you need to select some intermediate value of n, which allows you to get better performance. Now, here you can have multiple subqueues, and each subqueue size is n. There is another strategy called fscan. There are only two subqueues. When a scan begins, all of the requests which are there in the queue, they will be in the one queue, and all new requests which are coming, they will be put in another queue. Simple. Only two queues. Currently, when scan starts, whatever requests are pending, they are in one queue, and you start servicing those requests. If new request comes, you put it in the new queue. That's it. And service of new request is deferred until all of the old requests have been processed. And this is the comparison of the same example that we have taken for different strategies. So all in all, you can see that SSTF gives you better average seek length, right? All in all. Then scan, look are there, right? LIFO and FIFO, they are not a good choice. So this is about disk scheduling policies. Now, remaining part of this chapter is discussing, it is going to discuss RAID system and disk cache. So we'll discuss that next. Okay. Is it visible now? Fine. So remaining part of this chapter, it is going to discuss RAID systems and disk cache. So we'll start with that, RAID. Now, normally, whatever till now we have discussed about disk scheduling, we assume there is only one disk. But it is also possible that you can have multiple disks, and that is quite necessary when you are hosting some server applications, when you want to take backups for your critical data. So for all that, nowadays you must have heard about server farms. Have you heard about server farms? Yes, guys. So basically there are multiple servers which is providing same service using same data. So there are a number of replicas of your data. Fine, but it was all started with the simple idea of this multiple disk. So disk IO performance may be increased by spreading the operation over multiple read-write heads or multiple disks. Just assume that if your data are stored on multiple disks and there are requests coming for different data from the same, now it is the simplest case possible that we will be looking at, that is mirroring. The whole hard disk that you have, whole data of your disk is already there, duplicated on some another disk. Now requests are coming for same data or different data from that hard disk. Two different requests can be executed, can be served at the same time, because now you have two copies. Simple. So this multiple disk, definitely it is going to increase the performance. Not only performance will be increased, but failure can be handled. Okay, if one disk is failed, if it is crashed, still your data is stored on another disk. This is the simplest case of redundancy. Actually, this is the simplest case. But when we see different levels of RAID systems, there are other complexities that we are going to see, how this duplication and redundancy and fault tolerance is there. So what is RAID? Short form is RAID. The full form is redundant array of independent disk. So this disk are independent. Set of physical disk drives viewed by the operating system as a single logical drive. But for your operating system, though it is a array of disks, logically it is a single disk for your OS. And data are distributed across the physical drives of an array. And whatever data you have, now there are different ways to distribute your data, and that is called different levels of RAID. We will be looking at that. But this data are distributed over the physical drives. And redundant disk capacity is used to store parity information, which provides recoverability from disk failure. Now, how it is used to recover your data from the failed disk, that is what we are going to see. Now, this is the summary of all these RAID systems, but that we'll see at the end. So there are different levels. First of all, there are different RAID levels. RAID level 0, it is called stripping. RAID level 1 is called mirroring. RAID level 2 and 3, they are parallel access. 4, 5, 6 are independent access. With time, few more architectures are also added for this RAID system, like RAID 10, RAID 50 are there. Okay, but these are the very basic RAID levels that we are going to discuss. RAID 0, okay, for that, what happens in RAID 0? Let me show it through one example that I have found on internet. Okay, so for that, I need to stop this sharing and I need to share my browser. Why I'm not seeing that here? Can I share my browser screen here? Is it possible? But it is not showing in my option. Oh, it is there. It is there. Right. Fine. Is it visible, my browser? Fine. So this is a very good example that I got on I have observed on internet. So I'm going to show it here. Okay, can I share my multiple screens? Browser plus my PPDs? Fine. So in that case, I need to share the full screen. Uh, Full screen means desktop, I guess. Okay, let me try. Okay. Can you see everything on my desktop now? So now this is my slide and this is the browser. I hope both are visible now. Fine. So this is the good example that I have found of RAID level 0. Now with RAID level 0, what happens? These are the blocks of your data. These are the blocks of data, because normally in hard disk, the data are stored in form of blocks, a big chunk, maybe 512 kilobyte or 1024 kilobyte or something like that. That is 1 MB. So hard disk, it stores data in form of blocks. So just assume that these are the blocks of the data, and that is going to be stored in a stripped manner. Means what is that? Just see here. Block A is on this disk, block B on this disk, block C again on this disk, block D will be on this. So the whole data, they are stripped block by block, maybe block by block in different ways also. But this is the simplest way. This is called stripping. This is called stripping. Now, what is the purpose? I mean, what it achieves? You can see here. Here they are showing 4 disks, but at least 2 disks are required. So strip 0, strip 1, strip 2, strip 3. So whole data, it will be divided in strips and then they are stored on disk like this. This is not a true RAID because there is no redundancy. Where is the redundancy? There is no redundancy of the data. In fact, data are distributed. So the problem with this kind of RAID level is data failure, disk failure is catastrophic. If any of the disk is failed, you cannot recover your data. The purpose of RAID is to recover the data, but you cannot recover data here. But the another advantage that you have is very fast due to parallel read write. If request comes for this part of data only, and another request comes for this part of data, so parallelly 2 data request can be served. Just give me a second. Are you getting the point of RAID 0? Do you understand how it is happening? So though this provides a very fast IO, but then as there is no redundancy, disk failure is catastrophic and you cannot recover your data. That is RAID 0. Then what is RAID 1? Okay, if I can discuss this, you can see this characteristics and advantages plus disadvantages. All these are there. You can read. Mainly disadvantage, no data redundancy. That is what we discussed. This controller design is complex, very difficult and resource intensive to do as a software RAID. Okay, let us go to the second part, RAID level 1. Now, what is RAID level 1? It is called mirroring. This is the simplest form. Okay, now can you assume what is RAID level 1 here? Mirroring. The hint that I am giving you, that is mirroring. Can you tell me what is going to happen here? Anyone? So you just see that data A, it is stored on 2 different disks. Data B is stored on 2 different disks. Data C. So basically the whole data, they are copied. on another disk. And not only two, I mean, there can be multiple copies. Though we are showing only one copy, there can be multiple copies also. Okay, so what are the characteristics? Very high read data transfer rate. Very simple. Multiple reads can be performed. Very high write data transfer rate, that is also possible. Disk failure has an insignificant impact on throughput. Even if one disk fails, no problem. Another disk is already there, which is having the same data. In case of drive failure, data just has to be copied to the replacement drive. For an example, if this disk fails, you just need to replace this disk and copy whole data from here to there. And this is the simplest RAID storage system. Simplest storage system, RAID storage system. The effective storage capacity is only half of the total drive capacity. Now here, what is the storage capacity? Though you have two drives, you can store data of only one drive because other drive is just copy. May not support hot swap. Okay, that is not required right now. Okay, so that is another part of it. So that is mirroring. Now you can see here in this example, again, data strips are there, whole data is stripped, and all these strips are copied. RAID 2 and 3, they are called parallel access. RAID level 2 and RAID level 3, they are called parallel access. Why? Because now still idea of stripping is there. The idea of stripping is there, but now stripping is not in a big chunk. In fact, in RAID level 2, it is bit level stripping. Whatever data you have, for example, 1 byte. So all this whole byte, it will be stripped bit by bit. Here it is showing only 4-bit data, but you can have 8-bit data if it is a byte. Then you can have 8 disks, and each disk will store 1 bit of that data. It can be at byte level, which is RAID level 3. So you just assume, just try to visualize. If your data is stripped bit by bit, okay. So now if you want to read 1 byte, but the whole byte, it is distributed over different disks. How you can read 1 byte? So for that, in RAID level 2, what is there? The disk arm of all the disks, it is synchronized. So if disk arm of this disk, if it is pointing to B0 bit of particular word, then disk arm of this disk, it is also pointing to the same position, which is actually pointing to the B1 bit of the same byte. So synchronized disk rotation is there. Same position. All the disk arm, they are pointing to the same position. And that is how, when you combine all these bits, you will get your data. You will get your byte. So this is how data are stored, bit level. So stripping is there, but at the bit level. Then what is this? This is extra disk, which are used to store Hamming codes. And Hamming code is basically used to correct single bit errors and detect double bit errors. So Hamming code is separate topic. It's a type of, it's a method through which you can create some data, another data, some code out of these bits. And these bits can be used to identify if there is any error. 1 bit error can be identified, only 1 bit error. If there are 2 bits error, it can be detected, but you cannot identify which 2 bits are incorrect. So Hamming code is the method which can be used to store, Hamming code method is used to create Hamming code, and they will be stored on this extra disk. So bit level stripping, Hamming code is the method to create error correction code, and it will be stored here on extra disk. Again, this is out of date. No one is using it. Is quite expensive actually, because it is bit stripping. So if I show it here, RAID level 2, again, there is no animation, but the same thing you can see here, the same kind of diagram. A0, A1, A2, A3, these are the bits of one particular byte, and these are the parity bits, which are generated through Hamming code. So extremely high data transfer rate. Data transfer rate is very high because parallelly. Okay. But it is rarely used in practice and strips data at the bit level. So it is the same thing, that is what we discuss. Now the similar RAID level 3 is there. It is similar, but not exactly same, where again data strippings are there, which may be at byte level or word level. Data stripping at byte or word level. And now there is only one extra disk, which is used to store parity of corresponding bits of these bytes here. So let's say here you are storing 1 byte, 1 byte, 1 byte, 1 byte. First bit of this byte, first bit of this byte, first bit of this byte, first bit of this byte. Take all first bits and find the parity and store it here in the first bit. Take second bits of all this, find parity and store it in the second bit. Take third bit of all this first byte, all these bytes, and find the parity and store it in the third bit likewise. So here you require only one extra disk to store parity. So here very similar to level 2, but the only thing is now you don't require multiple extra disk, you require only one extra disk. And here you have byte level stripping. Here you have byte level stripping. So this is RAID level 3. This is RAID level 3. And data is byte level, but parity is bit level. As I just discussed, first bit of this, and that will, based on that, you will find the first bit parity. Second bit of all this, and you will find the second bit parity likewise. So that is RAID level 3. Any question up to this point? Please ask if you have any question in this RAID system. Basically, this is a storage system. Then comes RAID level 4, which is block level parity, very similar to RAID level 3. Okay, but now instead of byte you are storing, in fact you are storing block. So this is also storing block, but parity will be again bit by bit. Parity will be found bit by bit. First bit of this block, first bit of this block, first bit of this, and first bit of this. Find the parity and store it here. Simple. And this is parity for block 0 to 3. Parity for block 4 to 7. So it is same as RAID level 3. The only is the data that you are storing, that you are stripping, that is at block level. Then comes RAID level 5. Now, same as RAID level 4. The only thing is here you are using same disk for parity storage, but here parity will be distributed in round robin fashion. First strip, this is called first strip. Parity for first strip is stored on this disk, but parity of second strip, it is stored on this disk. Third will be on this, fourth will be on this, fifth will be on this. So the parity, they are now not stored on the same disk. If this disk fails, all parity you will lose in RAID level 4. But now what you are doing, you are storing parity on different disks in round robin fashion. So can you tell me where the next block, this strip parity will be stored? On which disk parity of next strip will be stored? No, it is round robin. So it won't like this. Once this is completed, again it will start from here. It will start from here. It's a round robin. So that is RAID level 5. And RAID level 6, similar to RAID level 5. But then what is difference? Instead of single parity, you have double parity. two different parity calculations are carried out, and they are stored in separate blocks on different disks. So you can see 4 data blocks, 2 parity blocks. Again, round robin. This 3 and this 4 data blocks, 2 parity blocks. Different techniques for parity calculation. So what advantage it provides over RAID level 5? It can recover from 2 disk failing. This helps you to recover from 1 disk fail. But if 2 disk fails, this will help you to recover from 2 disk failing. If 2 disk fails at a time in a very small period also, still you can recover using RAID level 6. Are you getting from RAID level 0 to RAID level 6? Then, which is not given in your book, but I'm discussing here. Okay, RAID 5. Let me show you RAID 5 first. So what is RAID 5? Just see here. Whole data A, block A is divided in this 3 part, and parity is stored here. So whole data block A is stripped here, and parity for that is generated in this block. So this is strip 5. Strip 6, just see, very similar to strip level 5. You can note down this website, if you want to go through it later. But this is now distributed in round robin fashion. Okay. Now this RAID level 6 we have seen. RAID level 10 and 50 are also there. What is 10? 10 is 1 plus 0. 10 is RAID level 1 plus RAID level 0. So what is RAID level 1? What is RAID level 1? Mirroring, complete copy. So you can see the whole copy of this 0 and 1 will be there on disk number 2 and 3. That is mirroring. That is RAID 1. But what is RAID 0? What is RAID 0? Stripping. Okay. So now you just see here. What is RAID 10? So data A is stripped A0, A0, A1, A1. So within this it is mirroring, but then this is stripping. Are you getting? Disk 0 and disk 1 is a copy of disk 0. Disk 3 is copy of disk 2. And between this, it is stripping. Now, can you visualize what is disk 50? What is RAID level 50? So this is RAID level 50. 5 plus 0. 5 plus 0. 0 is just a stripping. A0, A1, parity of A0, A1. A2, A3, parity of A2, A3. Are you getting? This is not there in your book, but I found it interesting, so I just shared with you. Basically, RAID level 10 and 50, they are nothing but some hybrid version of RAID. Combination of two different RAID systems. Are you clear with this? Excuse me. Fine. So this is about RAID system, RAID storage system, and they are quite used with servers and especially database servers. Have you ever heard about this RAID before this? Have you ever seen it? Nowadays, actually, this cloud storage systems, we are using cloud storage system. We do not invest in local RAID systems, but cloud, they may be using this kind of RAID systems because they are storing data of so many clients. So if you get time, you can ask your management to take you to the visit of such company where they are using this kind of system, and you can see that. Next topic is disk cache. Now, what is cache? We have already discussed one kind of cache. Not one, in fact, two types of cache. Do you remember any type of cache that we discussed while discussing memory management? No one remembers that? So we are going to discuss disk cache. Cache memory is used to apply to a memory that is smaller and faster than main memory, and that is interposed between main memory and the processor. Normally, cache word, it is used for buffering. We have already discussed TLB, translation look aside buffer, TLB. We have seen that. We also discussed some cache, L1, L2 cache you might have heard about, which is main memory cache. Similarly, now whatever data is on disk, can we keep some of that data in our main memory? And if we can do that, then it will become disk cache. What is the purpose of that? Reduces average memory access time by exploiting the principle of locality. Basic cache. This is talking about basic cache, any cache. If you have main memory cache, which stores some data from main memory, then definitely you need not to talk to main memory if data is there in cache, like page table and something like that. So similarly, disk cache is a buffer in main memory for disk sectors, because normal L1, L2 cache, they are faster than main memory. That is why we put main memory data in cache. Give me a second. So similarly, disk cache is nothing but the buffer in the main memory. It's a space in the main memory which stores disk data. So it contains a copy of some of the sectors on the disk. Normally, how it behaves. So when an IO request is made for a particular sector on the disk, first it will make a check whether this data is there in the main memory or the disk buffer, disk cache, which is a part of main memory. So if the sector is in the disk cache, if yes, simple, the request is satisfied via the cache, and you need not to access disk, because disk access is time consuming operation. But if it is not there, first you need to request that sector, read it into the disk cache, and then you can use it. So this is the basic idea of disk cache. Now the point is, when you need to load some disk sector or some disk data into disk cache, but this disk cache is of course limited. So as it is limited, sometimes you need to replace some of the existing data in disk cache so that you can bring new data. So again, replacement strategies are required. Like page replacement strategy, there are disk cache replacement strategy. And the simplest method is list recently used. This is the most commonly used algorithm that deals with the design issues of replacement strategy. And I think it is not difficult to understand what is list recently used because we have seen this algorithm. So the disk block which you have stored in disk cache, when you need to bring new disk block or sector, whatever disk data, whichever disk cache data is list recently used, you remove that, make a space and put new data. So the block that has been in the cache the longest with no reference to it, it is going to be replaced. Now a stack of pointer references the cache. Now you have a stack of pointers. Actually, when you need to replace the data, we are not moving the data in the disk cache itself because moving of data is going to take time in the main memory. Okay. So rather than that, you just keep a stack of pointers to those blocks in the main memory of disk cache. And you just changes those pointers. So most recently referenced block is on the top of the stack. So the pointer of that will be on the top of the stack pointers. And when a block is referenced or brought into the cache, it is placed on the top of the stack because it's the latestly, you can say it is the latest block which is referred. So that will be in the top of the stack. And whichever pointer, okay, pointer of whichever block is at the bottom of the stack, that is list recently used. And that is why it is at the bottom of the stack. And when you need to remove data from the disk cache so that you can bring new data, just find out that block from that bottom pointer, remove that data and put, I mean, remove that data means just overwrite that part by the new data. But pointer of that will be now going in the top because it is the new data that you are referring. So just by changing the pointers, stack of the pointers to those disk blocks, disk cache block, you can manage this. Next is list frequently used method. In this method, another method for disk block, disk cache replacement, instead of replacing list recently used block, you can use list frequently used block. The block that has experienced the fewest references is replaced. For that, what you need to do? You just need to maintain a counter for each disk block which is there in the cache. So a counter is associated with each block and counter is incremented each time block accessed. So wherever this block is accessed, counter will be incremented. And whenever replacement is excuse me. So in this method, whenever replacement is required, the block with the list value of count is selected to be replaced. And that is how you can use list frequently used method. But there is some problem with this list frequently used method. Let us understand what can be the problem. So it may be that certain blocks they are referenced relatively infrequently overall. Okay, certain blocks are referred infrequently, but when they are referenced, there are short intervals of repeated reference due to locality. So what I'm trying to say, let's say there is some block. Overall, that block is not going to be referred much. But because of principle of locality, in short interval of time, the same block can be referenced multiple times. So only for that short period of time, it is actually required. After that, it is not going to referred frequently, or it is not even going to be referred. But during that short period, as that block was referred frequently, it has incremented the counter very high. And because of that, when you use LFU, that block will not be replaced because it has very high counter value, though it is not going to be required in a future. So after such an interval is over, the reference count may be misleading and not reflect the probability that the block will soon be referenced again. And thus, the effect of locality may actually cause the LFU algorithm to make poor replacement choices. So that is one problem with LFU. So how this problem can be solved? So there is a method called frequency-based replacement. Now what you need to do, the whole stack that you have, of those pointers of the disk blocks, now you divide that stack in two parts, new section and old section. Old section, the last one, contains the least recently used block, and new section, first block, is most recently used block. This is frequency-based replacement, where whenever any block gets referred from the new section, let's say this is the, up to this it is a new section, and after that it is an old section. Whenever any block from new section gets referred again, counter will not be incremented, just it will be set here. Its pointer will be at the top of the stack. Pointer will be given at the, will come at the top of the stack, but counter will not be incremented if it is from the new section. Okay, so if for shorter interval period, if the same block is referred again and again, it is still in the new section, it is continuously coming here, going back, coming here, going back, but counter is not incremented. If the block that you are referring, it is from the old section and you are referring that, this time pointer will come at the top and counter will be incremented. And then counter will be incremented. Because as block was in old section means it was not referred since long. Now you are referring it, so you should increment its counter. And suppose the block that you are referring, if it is not in the cache, you need to bring it there. And when you bring that new block, again, it will be at the top of the stack. So how this method helps? This method solves the problem of LFU. If within short interval, same block is referred again and again, counter is not going to be incremented because that is still in the new section. But if the same block, after a long time it is referred, now it has gone to the old section by shifting the pointers. So as it has shifted in the old section part, its counter will be incremented. But then it seems a good alternative to this LFU. It is observed practically that it is not giving much better result than LFU, maybe slightly better, but that is not enough. So there is another alternative to this. Rather than dividing this stack in two parts, this is a stack of pointers which are pointing to the disk cache blocks. Rather than dividing into two parts, divide this in three parts: old section, new section, and middle section. And how it works? Very similar. If new section block is referred again and again, though it is put at the top of the stack, but counter will not be incremented. Okay. And this middle section is a larger part. This middle section is the larger part. Okay. If it is referred again, put it in the new section and counter will be incremented in both this case, middle section and old section. So this is another strategy where you can use 3 sections rather than 2 sections. And why it is helpful? What is the problem in 2 section? I discussed that it is not giving much better result than LFU. Why that happens? Because what happens, uh, okay, let me ask you one thing. In this case, frequency based replacement, which block will be replaced whenever new block needs to bring in? Can you tell me? In this frequency based replacement, which block will be replaced? Basically, a block from the old section which has list count value, and normally it is LRU, list recently used, normally, because it is always have at the end of the queue, end of the stack, bottom of the stack, so it will be removed. But the problem is, what happens that, let's say, for a shorter interval of time, one particular block, it is frequently referred, but as it was referred in a shorter interval time, its count value is not incremented much. Its count value is not incremented much because it was in the new section, so count value is not incremented. It is always 1. After that interval, now it is not going to be referred for a near future, in the near future. So it will be aging and it will slide into the old section with count value equal to 1. But actually, that count value 1 is not showing its frequency by which it was referred, and it was soon replaced. But it is possible that it is going to be referred next. So in that case, this will help. How this particular alternative helps? Because it will get enough time in middle section so that before it can be replaced, it will be spending time in middle section, and if it is required, it will be referred and its count will be incremented. So this frequency based replacement, it is a good alternative to the LFU based method. And if you compare the performance, this is LRU performance. What is the axis here? This is the code size, sorry, cache size. This is cache size, and this is the disk cache miss rate. Cache miss rate in percentage. So definitely, if you increase the cache size, miss rate percentage will be reduced. And this is in the 3 different computers. Okay, but this is the optimal point, knee point, because we don't require, if we provide more cache, definitely miss will be reduced, but we don't want to provide very high cache, right? Size of the cache normally it is limited, so we don't want this, we want something here. And this is the disk cache performance in case of LRU, and this is the disk cache performance in case of frequency based replacement. And if you compare this, it achieves its optimal value with smaller size of disk cache. It achieves that optimal or required value of the miss rate with smaller size of the cache. You can see that here. Especially in this particular case. Not in this case, because here miss rate is still high. Here miss rate is still high. And that's why commonly LRU is used rather than any other method, because LRU is sufficient. I mean, it is good enough in case of disk cache replacement strategy. So with this, chapter number 11 is over, where we have discussed IO functions, its organization, categories. Then we discuss disk scheduling. Sorry, we discuss, disk scheduling policy. In fact, we discussed that, this IO policy, and then we discuss RAID and disk cache. So today I'm not going to start the new chapter, that is file management system, that I will complete in next 2 lectures, Wednesday and Friday. So if you have any question at this point, you can ask. Regarding your final exam, what course will be there? Of course, whatever is discussed after midterm, that is there. Some part of your first session before midterm, whatever we discuss, some of them can be there in the final exam. And what will be there, which topics will be there in the final exam from the first session, that I will share. If you have any other question, you can ask. Format of end semester, that you need to confirm with your uh, college faculty or management. Even I need to confirm that. And please read book. These slides are just the representation. I mean, it is not enough. Okay, because a lot of things I have talked here, and more than that is available in your book. So here I am just giving you the idea, right? I cannot discuss each line of the book, but each line of the book is really, you can say, contain some knowledge, and you should get that knowledge. So please read the book.